What is going on YouTube? It's your boy NevinTheBarber, and in today's YouTube video we're going to be going over a huge transformation. My boy hadn't cut his hair in about 4 or 5 months, so we're going to begin by parting the hair off, just sectioning all the bulk that I'm going to be taking off, just so we could section off the hair before we actually start getting into the fade. So I am using my Gamma Ergos just to knock off this bulk. And then to begin with our next step, I am using the Gamma Hitters to carve in my bald line. And with this first bald line right here, you guys do want to make sure that you're very precise and consistent on both sides, just because this is going to determine how the rest of your fade lays out. And my client did want a mid-drop fade, so you guys can see that I did drop it in the back underneath his occipital bone. And it's very important that you guys do this whenever your client requests for a drop fade, just so you have enough space to blend it out. And now for the next step in this fade, I did take the 1.5 guard all the way closed to create our foundation line for the fade. And for those of you guys that don't know, the fade does take place between the 0 and the 1.5. So like I said, with this first guideline, we're just going to create the foundation. And now we're going to go right in the middle of that foundation line with no guard lever open. This right here is cutting the hair down to a 0.5 length. And we're just going to be doing some lever play to knock out that, that first initial guideline. And if you guys don't have your clippers zero gapped, I do highly recommend that you zero gap your clippers just to make this job a little bit easier and whatnot. Now that we have that blended out, you guys could see that I went straight into the half guard to start flicking up and blending up into the next guideline in the haircut. And now that we have that done, I took my 2 guard all the way open, just flicking up towards the parietal ridge, taking out those last dark areas at the top of the fade. And same thing with my 1.5 guard. With the bigger guards, I usually just go lever open and lever closed. You guys don't gotta do a lot of lever play when it comes to the bigger guards, so just keep that in mind. You guys can see little by little that the fade is coming together. And now to do the lineup, I am starting with the C cup. And when you guys do the C cup, you want to start at the top of the arch and finish it connecting through the bottom. This will make it a lot easier just to keep it right at that natural line. And now that we have that side done, we'll begin doing the same steps on the other side. First sectioning off the hair, and then we'll begin by removing some bulk just by cutting the hair with the grain. I do have the number 2 guard on the ergos right here. And I did this just to make it a lot easier before I go in and start cutting the hair with my trimmers. And when you guys are cutting hair like this, it's very important that you cut with the grain rather than against before you go into the hair and create your foundation. And again, you guys can see I'm using my Gamma Hitters to effortlessly carve in that bald line. And now with the lever all the way open, this is cutting the hair down to a 0.5 length. And you guys can see we went up about 1 inch just to give us enough space to blend out that skin line area. And now that we have that blended out, we'll go with the 1 guard all the way open. Again, going up about 1 inch. You guys always want to make sure you have enough room to blend out your guidelines rather than keeping it very compressed. And with my 2 guard all the way open, I'm just flicking up at the rest of that bulk. It's very important that you guys are consistent with your cutting stroke and that you pay attention to the growth pattern of your client's hair, Some of your clients are gonna have their hair growing down, up, left, right. So just pay attention to the growth pattern of the hair and cut it according to whichever way it's growing out of the scalp. And to finish off this fade, I went ahead and put on the half guard just to polish out that last line. And you guys can see that little by little, the blend is starting to look blurry with these consistent steps. And if you guys have learned anything in this video so far, please be sure to hit that like button. I do appreciate any feedback. So thank you for any of you guys that tuned into today's video. And lastly, you guys can see that I'm just cutting the hair with the grain just to lay those last areas of bulk down, just so they could lay into the fade. And now that we have the fade complete, we'll begin with the lineup. So as always, I always like to taper the lineup before I actually start and get into cutting the hair. So I am using the one guard with the grain. And I do like to use some hairspray just to lay down all the little baby hairs and get that nice crispy edge up. And again, just like we did on the other side, we're gonna start off by lining up the C-cup first, starting at that arch and then connecting it from the bottom. And I do have these trimmers right here zero gapped. So like I said, if you guys haven't zero gapped your clippers or trimmers yet, I highly recommend that you do, just because it'll make this part of the haircut right here 10 times easier. And now that we have the lineup complete, we'll go ahead and hit it with the razor just to make it stand out and give it that picture perfect look. And it's very important that you guys always stretch the skin whenever using the razor blade. And you guys can see that I took that razor blade up against the grain just to give it that nice picture perfect look. And now for the fun part in the haircut, we'll just begin taking off the bulk to finish up the blend. And my client only wanted to keep his mustache, so we took off the goatee and the beard. And you guys could see that these gamma hitters were able to effortlessly take off this bulk. So if any of you guys are interested in purchasing them, feel free to use my code NEVIN10 on the Gamma website for a little discount. I do highly recommend these clippers right here. I've been using them for the past couple of years, but if there's any beginner barbers out there trying to purchase a new clipper, I do highly recommend this brand right here. And same thing on the other side. You guys can see that we're just taking off the rest of the bulk to finish up the fade. And after we take off the bulk, we're just gonna go over it with the Bronze Series 9 shaver. And this is just getting all of that stubble down to the skin. And it's all these little extra details that really play a big role in making your guys' fade stand out. So always be sure to go above and beyond and just apply those extra details whenever you guys are finishing up your haircuts. So always be sure to go back and double check your work. Like I said, your client will really appreciate it, and this will increase your chances of retainment. So be sure to go back and put in all those extra details that you can. And lastly, we're just gonna finish up by cleaning up the top of my client's hair, snipping off any little hairs that are standing out. My client did want to keep most of the length on top, so you guys can see that I'm just snipping off any little flyaways that don't belong in the frame of my client's haircut. And these are my own shears right here. If any of you guys are interested in a new set of shears, feel free to DM me on Instagram at NevinTheBarber. And right here, we're just finishing up the haircut, doing some shear over comb. I do personally like to do shear over comb in all of my haircuts just because it gives the top of the fade more of a softer finish into the bulk. And you guys can see I'm just point cutting out those dark areas. This is a really good technique, like I said, just to soften up those dark spots. But that is pretty much it for today's haircut tutorial. If you guys learned anything in this video today, please be sure to hit that like button. Please drop a comment and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. But thank you guys again. My name is NevinTheBarber and I'm out. I'll see you guys in the next one.